Give this a second to make sure it is on my Facebook Live because it always has a delay. And I want to confirm that we are all good to go, which we are. Yay. Oh my goodness. What a relief. I am so excited for this interview. For those that are tuning in and meant to tune in last week, again, I'm so sorry about the technical difficulties, but I promise you this is going to be a really good show. So my name is Erica Soba. Welcome to the 9th episode of Small Business Owner Interviews. And today's interview is extremely special to me because today I have my Uncle Ruben, and I will be referring to him as Uncle Ruben throughout this interview because I don't know how else to call him.
Godfather.
Well, yes, he's also my godfather, him and Aunt Lori. And Uncle Ruben, my dad, Edward, and another brother of theirs, David, the three brothers started this company called 3V. And I won't steal the spotlight from him because he's going to be able to share with you how that company got started. But there were three Villarreal brothers that started this company, which came up with the company name 3V. And then later, after two of the other brothers, now mind you, this is a family of 10. Yes, I have 10 wonderful aunts and uncles and their spouses. So I guess that's 20, right? After two other brothers joined the military, left, they joined 3V as well. And so then it was the five of them for a short while. One of our uncles, or one of my uncles, one of Uncle Ruben's brothers, dad's brothers, Uncle Davey had passed away this past year. And so he's no longer with the company, but he is there in spirit. And so I do want to acknowledge him, but we'll talk about that in just a bit. So this is a family owned business. They've been in business for 38 years. And I'm so grateful. Uncle Ruben, thank you so much for being a part of my interview series.
You're welcome, Erica. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. And for all the family members and cousins that are watching, I did want to make a formal declaration that Uncle Ruben has announced that I am his favorite niece. So if anybody was questioning that, we had and I just wanted to go ahead and declare that on Facebook Live right now. So, sorry, but not sorry. So I'm just kidding. So Uncle Ruben, let's get right to it. Tell us who you are. Tell us about 3V, what you do.
So 3V is an architectural woodworking company. A lot of people don't know what that means, so we just say we're a cabinet shop or a woodworking shop, But architectural woodworking is a highly specified form of woodworking where there are spec books and associations involved specifying the fit and finish and of the woodwork, and it's generally speaking, it's non-residential. It's institutional, municipal, hospitals and things like that, and retail. And that's where you'll find a lot of the architectural woodwork. You walk into a Nordstrom or a department store like that and wonder where all of that millwork comes from. It comes from people like us, or a bank, or a supermarket. And you see the salad bars, and where you walk up in the deli department to pay your bill, and all of that sort of stuff. That's what we do, along with the signage and the decor and things like that in the stores, banks, like I said, universities, hospitals. Mm-hmm. And that's what architectural woodwork is, and that's what we do.
Yeah. So they've been around. 3V has officially been a business for 38 years now. But before that, what led up to forming this business? What were you doing beforehand that pushed you to forming this company?
Well, there's I guess a short version and a long version to that. Let me kind of split it in the middle. So as you said, there are 10 of us in the family, right? And there were the smart ones, and they all went to college. And then there were the rest of us, in other words, the boys. And and we didn't go to college. We graduated high school and we went into the trades. And back then in the 70s, in the early 70s, it was kind of a well-trodden route. It was a very honorable. It was there weren't like the tracks today and school forcing and funneling everyone into colleges. There were apprenticeship programs, very strong vocational programs, and there was a lot of opportunity if you wanted to become a plumber, electrician, carpenter, all of those sorts of traditional trades, right? And so that's what we did. And further, there was even apprenticeship programs, apprenticeship schools, 4-year programs, and we all served through those programs. We learned a lot, and we graduated as journeyman carpenters. And so the first one to do that was David, and we are all a year apart, by the way. The founders, David was 18, I was 17, Eddie was 16, right? And then so Davey graduates and he goes and does this at the at the union carpentry local, and he's making all this money, and I'm here bagging groceries, and I'm like, that's it for me. I'm doing what he's doing. So I follow in his footsteps and I go into the carpentry trade and sign up for the apprenticeship program. And then Eddie follows suit. Renee follows suit. Danny was still, quite a few years younger. But then Renee decided to join the military, and that left David, Eddie, and myself to pursue the trades. And again, we all, after the 4-year program, we were journeyman carpenters working in the market, working in the Houston market at the time, and it was booming, and there was a job for everybody, and you can work all of the overtime you wanted and everything. And there we were, gaining skills, just gaining and gaining subject matter expertise, if you will, this carpentry skills and woodworking skills. And that's how we became carpenters, and that's where we acquired the skills to be able to form a company.
Uh-huh.
Now, so then how we formed the company was David was a foreman for a company that specialized in store fixture installations.
Mhm.
Store fixture installation is the best way to describe it. What they did was you walk into a shell of a building, and let's say it's an HEB or a Randall's or Kroger, and you see 4 walls and a ceiling and a floor. Okay, everything else needs to be installed, and that's what David did. That's what he ran, was the teams to install the refrigeration, the signage, the gondolas, the check stands where you check out. In other words, everything you can touch and feel and see in a store that's not the walls, the ceiling, or the floor is called fixture installation,
Okay.
including the back rooms with the walk-in coolers and all of that stuff, And he was very good at it. And one day, the company he was working for whatever reason, they were part of a conglomerate. They went out of business, or they shut their doors. And Davey talked to Eddie and myself and suggested that maybe we should give it a shot, that he has an in with Randall's. Randall's at the time had like 12 stores. Okay, they were very small, and they really loved him. They demanded him to be the supervisor on their stores when they chose that company to do the fixture installations. And if they could not provide David, then that company would not get the job. And that's how highly they thought of him, and that's how capable Davey was. And so he says, I think that if we ask them, he goes, there's like Bubba Gump. He says, I know everything about the shrimp business. Well, Davey knew everything about the fixture business, right? He goes, and I think that if we ask them and if we form a team, they'll give us a job. So we said, yeah, let's do it. Eddie and I were in more high-end architectural work. We were working downtown, very, very fine, architectural work with paneling and credenzas and things in law offices and stuff like that. But Eddie but before that, Eddie was working with David, so he knew a lot about fixture installation. I'm the one who didn't know anything. I was more in the fine woodworking side of things, and they were more in the fixture installation side of things. So they had mechanic tools, and I had block planes and saws and things like that, right? But anyway, we said, yeah, let's give it a shot. And he approached their store planning person at the time, and he said, yeah, we'll give you a shot. So at the time, I was the only one that was single. Eddie and David were married, meaning they were broke, and I had money because, again, we had union jobs. I was making tons of money, didn't even know what to do with it. So I threw in $10,000 to start the company, and that's how we started the company. It was
Wow.
yeah, it was when I say start the company, you have to understand we didn't even know what a company was.
Yeah,
It was,
I mean,
we didn't, how do you start what is the Secretary of State? How, so my brother, thank God, Jose, our oldest brother, he was one of the smart ones. He went to college. And so he was an attorney, and he kind of guided us through it and said, well, you need to register with the Secretary of State. You need to form this entity. So we submitted all the paperwork. He helped us submit all the paperwork. Here again, it's we were just oblivious to any of those things. We were great workers. That's all we were. We didn't know anything about that. But we quit our jobs and we started that. We bought some equipment, some tools. We bought a little trailer, and the jobs didn't come. And there we are, just sitting there and going and paying ourselves, right, with this money, whatever was left. And it turns out we told Eddie, okay, Eddie, go back and find a job and Davey and I will just continue to try and drum up some business until the Randall's things hit. Well, finally, after a couple of months, Randall's gave us our first job. It was a remodel. It wasn't one of their big jobs. And it was, this is how early it was. It was back during, the number of the store was Randall's number 4 on Long Point. That's how little.
For those that are watching and don't know, Randall's is a grocery store.
Yeah. Well, and they're at the time they were a venerable grocery store. They've been since bought several times over, but they were owned by the Armstead family, and they were just the lion of Houston. I mean, they were the best. They were HEB kind of has that spot now, but Randall's really was the the preferred grocery store at the time, and the most avant-garde, and trying all the new things and bringing new ideas and stuff like that. They were our client. I mean, how lucky were we, right?
Right. Yeah.
But anyway, we got that job. Eddie came back on board. I'll never forget. We turned in a bill for the work that we had done, and it was like $10,000. And I was like, David, are you sure? That's like an unheard of amount, for us at the time. And they wrote us a check, and I'm going all the way to the bank with this $10,000 check going, are they even going to catch it? Do they know how much they paid us? I mean, you're talking 5 years later, we're cashing $2 and $3 million checks, right? So, but that's how fast this thing exploded. We caught Randall's on the cusp of just an explosion of business on their part, and we were part of the team. And that's how we started.
Wow. So as you guys were growing, you have 3 heads in this. How did you guys determine who makes decisions and who doesn't? How did you determine that between you, Uncle Davey, and my dad?
Well, it was a wrestling match. We had this ring, and no, That was set at the beginning. Davey was in charge. I was the second in charge, and Eddie was the third in charge. That's the way we grew up. That's the order we were born in, and that's the pecking order that we sustained until many, many years later. It was never questioned. It was never argued about. It was never protested. It's just the way of the world. It was
Wow.
the way. Who would ever think that I'm not number two? I mean, I myself know that I'm number two because Davey's number one, and I know that Eddie's number three. And Eddie would look and go, "Well, of course I'm number three. You're number two." You know, I mean, that's just it was known. So we never had that argument or had to figure out who's. We never did an analysis of our talents and what we brought to the table. We should have,
Wow.
but we didn't. You know, it was just the natural birth order of things. Very old school, very, just off the cuff,
Yeah. And so since you're a family owned business and you guys have nobody left, there was no ugly breakup. Now, granted, I know there was probably lots of fights because that's family, but you guys stayed together during this whole time. And then two more brothers came later on and you still never, like, there was no division of the family. For those that are watching, like, we still spend every Thanksgiving, every Christmas together, all the Easter, egg hunts were all the family. So
I know that you're doing a lot of interviews with a lot of businesses and it's about entrepreneurship and all of that. But we really are kind of a strange cookie to be interviewing. We do not follow the rules, right? And in one aspect, what you just brought up about the two brothers, okay, so did we go through our books and get attorneys and figure out the valuations of things and do some sort of buy-in strategy? No. One day we were working on a job, Eddie, Davey, and I, and Renee. By that time, Renee had joined the company as an employee, and Danny had just gotten out of the Navy. And I'll never forget, we were all standing by one of our pickup trucks, Davey, Eddie, and I. It's like, hey, man, these guys, they're going to be with 3V. What are we going to do? And well, they might as well be owners. Yeah, agree. Yes, we all agree. Okay, well then they're owners. And that was our contract. That was it. That was, in other words, it went in writing. It's I own 33%, Davey owns 33, Eddie owns 33% of 3V. But in actuality, it immediately, right then and there, turned to 20, 20, 20, 20, 20. It was just 1/5. This is yours. Was there any buy-in? No, the sweat equity was your buy-in. The fact that you were our brother, the fact that you made a commitment to this company, that's your buy-in. It was unquestioned on their part, on our part. It was just what the Villarreal family does. There's no paperwork that you have to follow through on, or no calculations you have to make. It's just a family commitment. And from then on, it was like, okay, guys, you're part of the company. We're going to split everything by 5. Okay, let's go. Everybody back to work. And that's what happened. Yeah.
And
it's still that way today.
Which is absolutely fascinating, Uncle Ruben, because I feel like those that are watching that are small business owners, I can imagine that they're like, I can't fathom what you're saying right now. I would never do that. Or I'd be too scared to do that. Or maybe they just don't even want to have a partner to begin with, because having a partner, that's a scary thing. As I've been talking to different business owners, they're like, I don't know what's going to happen. Now, granted, with you, it was your brothers, but that's so honorable. Let me tune into these comments real quick, Uncle Ruben, because we do have a bunch of people so far.
They're saying, you're crazy.
We've got Lori. Hello, Annette. My dad is here. Hi, Dad. He's probably working. For those that really wanted him to be here, because everybody reached out. Why isn't your dad? Why isn't your dad on?
That's right. Yeah. Why isn't it your dad?
He works in the evenings, guys. So let's give him a pass here. Okay. He works in the evenings. Aunt Tootsie's watching.
Hey, Aunt Tootsie.
Hi, Aunt
Love
Tootsie.
you.
Shelly is watching.
Hi, Shelly.
Grandma, of course, is watching. Annette says college is overrated when you were talking about that. Luis Boschke Amen
My cousin.
watching.
Hey,
Abel Garza.
boy, Lori put the word out, didn't she?
Lois.
Lois.
George Alberto Villarreal Patino. Hola, primos. Que, oh, I don't know Spanish.
Who all did you put the word out to? The whole world is watching.
Clarissa says, wow, he's a great storyteller. Rita Alicia, cousin Rita's here. Let's see. My mom says, Daddy was taking me to those high buildings in downtown to show off their work when we were dating. Such talented carpenters.
Yeah.
Lori, I've always wondered how that worked. So based on what you said with the contract, we have, this is incredible. I always wondered how this family did that. Love this family. Jaden says hello. Aunt Nancy says hello. Jackie says love to my cousin. So very proud of you. Mario says the Miejas watching all the way from California. So hello, everybody. Welcome.
Wow. Wow.
Yes, so we've got a lot of people here. Uncle Dave says, great interview. So proud of you both. Matthew, hello, Matthew from Matthew and Sujita. He's got a really good question. So he says, are you ready for this? Our question, what were the most difficult jobs you've worked on and how did you overcome those challenges as a family-owned company?
Raising my son, Matthew, that would have been the most difficult.
I think you meant in regards to 3V Company.
While he was at 3V, managing Matthew while he was at 3V. Thank you, Matthew. What was it? What were the most difficult what?
What was the most difficult jobs you've worked on and how did you overcome those challenges as a family-owned company?
Okay. So everything's difficult in one way or another, right? If you consider, let's call it 20 years, the first 20 years of nonstop growth and accelerated business and over and over and over and accelerating scope of work. For example, we started as just installers, right? Carpenters with our tool belts and mechanic tools and things and unloading trucks and installing. Well, then that shortly ran into we started making. So the customer asked us to make a cabinet and to make this and to make that. And before you know it, we became a manufacturing facility. And all of that at the speed that was required and the growth that was required was very difficult, but that was fun. How did we overcome it? Well, just guts and work ethic, and we had a never say no attitude, and we meant it. It's part of our DNA. I mean, it doesn't matter how many hours it takes. It doesn't matter how many people that we needed to acquire. But let's call that a difficult epoch. It's 20 years worth of accelerating growth,
Right.
accelerating scope of work, and accelerating challenges. But I'm trying to think of a job, like a project that was like impossible. And I can't, I can think of an endeavor that was the worst thing that we ever did and almost put us out of business. But it wasn't one job. It was called, so we had several entities. They were all 3D, right? But we had manufacturing, we had, manufacturing and installation of store fixtures, right? Architectural woodwork and store fixtures. And then we had a general contracting business where we would build stores and remodel them. And then we had something called job order contracting, JOC contracting. And this JOC contracting looked like a match made in heaven for us. It was, it's a way of doing business in the contracting business where you work off of this book called RS Means. It's a book that logs that states everything there is to know about construction. I mean, down to the cost of a screw and how many minutes it should take to put that screw in, conduit, electrical, plumbing, yeah, carpentry work, all of these things. It's this massive, massive volumes of books. And you agree to price everything according to that book value. And you negotiate. We won 3 jock contracts, beautiful contracts. I mean, you're talking, banner names like MD Anderson, like,
Wow.
yeah, we had UT Health Science Center. We had the Galveston one. What's it called? The UTMB. We had Southwest Texas. Their name now is, it's not Southwest Texas. It's
Texas State, I think.
Texas State. Right. We had.
You guys did stuff at A&M, right?
Well, not under Jock. We actually made money at A&M. All right, but under this Jock thing, we got into something that we didn't understand, and we lost so much money on those contracts, and it was a very difficult time. It was one of the few times where we failed and didn't know what to do about it. I mean, failure is our middle name. Any successful company fails all the time, and you learn from those failures and you move on. But this was a failure that me, my brother, we didn't know how to get out of. We
Wow.
had to, and by the time we knew how bad it was failing, we were insolvent. We didn't have enough money to pay our vendors. And our solution was to just have a come to Jesus moment and say, what do we keep and what do we jettison? And it was a very, very hard decision when these are your babies, this general contracting, job contracting, manufacturing. Our lifeblood is invested in these things, and you don't want to give any of them up.
Yeah.
But we were in our boardroom and we had voted and we had agreed that we were only going to keep the shop and the woodworking business. We were going to jettison the general contracting. We were going to jettison the jock contracting. This is the nature of the business is you win these contracts for 3 years or 5 years, and they keep renewing. So you have all of these contracts lined up, and all of these contracts being lined up simply represented more losses for us if we had to complete those contracts.
Wow.
So we called all of the different project managers in charge of us at these entities, MD Anderson, and they were all gracious enough to let us finish the live projects we had going on and let us off the hook of any future ones. We said, we simply cannot take your future ones, because if we do, we'll leave you hanging. We can't complete them. And so the first hard decision we made was to recognize that we are failing and there's no way out, and we have to cut our losses. And then cutting our losses on the jock side meant there was just this horrible episode where we had never found ourselves in this position where we actually owed money to vendors and we couldn't pay them. That was foreign to us. We had never known that. And we had what we called a dirty dozen. We had a dozen vendors that we left on the hook, and they were HVAC contractors, electrical contractors, painters, drywallers, electricians, people like that, trades, just like our trade, and the funny thing is, anybody with a title behind their name, any professional, like a banker, an accountant, an attorney, every one of those advisors advised us to not pay and to shut it down and to keep our money because we have to protect our families, we have to protect our homes, we have a certain amount of value that we have to take out of this thing and keep, you know, and that's the cost of doing business. Sorry about them, but tough luck, you know. And we rejected every bit of that advice. And we mortgaged our homes. It's still emotional today. I mean, it was an awkward situation at the, unknown to us. We tapped our family for help, and against all advice, it's like what you're doing is you're throwing good money after bad, and we said no, we're not going to leave anybody hanging. And so between my brother David and I, we called every owner that we owed money to, and we said, and it took, and these owners, they're just other 3Vs. They're just other people with families. They got a wife and kids, and they have their little business. That's all they have. They're not sophisticated, just like us. No grand thing. There's no public company. These are little privately owned mom and pop operations.
Yeah.
And we owed some of them. Well, we owed $800,000 between this dirty dozen, right? And we made them a proposition, and we said, look, we promise to pay you in full, 100%, if you just give us time. We'll put you on 12 monthly payments and we will pay you. Or you can file a claim on the bond, because these are all bonded jobs, because these are all municipalities and hospitals, and so they're very public and they require bonds. So you may not know what a payment and performance bond, but it's a hardcore bit of insurance and they're experts at not paying your claim. They'll, if you don't have your I dotted or your T's crossed, they'll find a way not to pay you. So these vendors that we were talking, they knew the score. They knew that if they filed a claim on what we owed them, they would probably get 25%, 50% on the dollar. And if they got any more than that, it might take 2 or 3 years to settle the case. Here we were offering them 100% within 12 months. And trust me, we didn't know how we were going to do it, but we were going to do it by selling our homes. We were going to do it. We were going to do it, and if that destroyed us, it's going to destroy us, but it was going to leave them whole. And lo and behold, every single one of them took the deal. And it was a miracle. They all took the deal. Nobody filed a claim on the bond and on their bonds. And we proceeded to pay them, in monthly payments. And also we went from $20 million a year to $2 million a year. But the difference was we made money at $2 million, whereas we were losing money at 20 million, right?
Wow.
And with that money that we made, we paid them. And we never missed a payment, and we paid them in full, and they never lost a dime. Mm-hmm. And ever since then, our bond company, who's stayed with us, they just they could not believe what we pulled off. And they said, I can't remember, there's some saying about the 3 C's, character and whatever. I just
clarity, color.
Yeah.
No, just kidding.
I just remember the character part, because they said, that's a capital C for you guys. You guys have character. And he goes, you need anything bonded, we're here for you. And ever since then, they've bonded anything, millions of dollars of work. They've with our financials looking like crap, they would still bond us. And so I guess, we earned a little bit of a reputation there, but we made good on our debts. We um, got out of that by the skin of our teeth, and we moved on. And even today, we we still only have the architectural woodworking company. Now it's grown since then, right?
Let's talk about that, Uncle Ruben. So we've talked about, obviously that's been
I'm sorry, that was a long story. I hope I didn't take up too much.
That's all right. I told everybody this was going to be a little bit longer interview.
Oh, okay, all right.
So we've talked about a very difficult time in 3V, but I'm curious, after you had.
Oh yeah, that was for you, Matthew.
Yeah, good. Thanks, Matthew. All right, thank you. From the moment that you started building that momentum with Randall's, and even after building the momentum again, after this situation had happened with the 12, what'd you call them?
Dozen.
Dirty Dozen.
You probably don't even know
you
what that
grew, means. Though. You grew. So why did 3V keep growing after Randall's, and then again after this Dirty Dozen situation?
Okay. I don't think it's a strategic plan.
But what was it?
It's our nature. Our nature from the very beginning, and even after that mishap and then continuing, is to never say no, right? When somebody asks for something, you just don't say no. You provide it. You find a way to provide it, and you provide it. And so it's just in our nature to, there's a market out there. There's a market that you need to satisfy, and we satisfy it. And so you grow, that sounds too simplistic, but
why 3V?
But I don't want you
guys weren't the only ones doing
this strategic plan. We drew it out on a whiteboard or whatever. No, it doesn't work that way. What were you asking?
I said, but other companies did this. So why would people pick 3V?
Oh, well, that's a different proposition. There are a lot of companies that do what we do, but maybe they're not run the way we're run. Maybe they don't believe what we believe. I mean, one of the things that we often say internally and we convey to the customer is, first of all, you have to understand who our customers are. Our customers are very busy and they're under a lot of pressure. Let's just take a bank, for example. A bank that's coming up from the ground. There's Murphy's Law is in play at every stage, right? Anything that can go wrong will go wrong. And you've got to work with the city for permits, and you've got to work with the federal government for all of those requirements. You've got to work with the general contractors and the architects and get this whole array of contractors involved, right? To build it and to provide all of the service. 3V and its little portion of millwork is just one in a big in a big group of contractors where everything has to go right. And there's something in construction called a critical path, and everything in the critical path has to absolutely go right, or the job fails or it falls behind, right? And the owners have these project managers in charge of these jobs, and they're constantly calling and pushing and prodding. And like I said, what we say internally and what we convey to them is, when it comes to 3V and all of these phone calls that you have to make and all of the things that are keeping you up at night and all of the people that you're worried about that are going to fail or have failed in the past, with 3V, you make one phone call. You make that phone call, you say what the issue is, and then we take it from there. Sleep peaceful at night. Don't call back. We've got the ball. We've got everything. We'll even jump over to other trades and solve that problem so that this problem is solved. We'll jump a tier or two over our authority. We'll go up to the GC or even to the architect or even to you yourself and discuss the issue and say, here are the potential issues. and here's the solution. Here's what we can do. Okay, go for it. And we present all of this to them on, maybe not a silver platter, but okay, we present it on a sawhorse, and because that's woodwork. But anyway, we provide solutions, and we provide solutions that are far afield from even our own responsibility, because we know that that customer, that project manager who's under all of that pressure would appreciate it. He or she knows that they can trust 3V to pull out all the stops, to find a solution, and to meet the challenge, and to provide the finished product successfully, and even for things that don't depend on us, we're always jumping over, either side to side or below us or above us, to find a solution and to bring other people on board to help that customer, even though it wasn't in our bailiwick, it wasn't in our scope of work, because we're here for them. When we have a customer, we are their employees. We're not the contractor. We don't say goodbye when we get paid. We're here. We're a team member, and we work for you. And so that's what differentiates us. That's why when you said, why us? Why not somebody else? Well, because that's our proposition. That's what we propose to them. And that's what we prove every single day. We set out to prove that, and to make it true, and to have integrity about it, to say, we don't even say, we told you so. We just say, here it is. And we walk away, and it's done, and they appreciate it.
Yeah.
And so you keep that customer.
So I need you to know, Uncle Ruben, as you've just been sharing just this bit, I mean, there's just been so many people commenting in response to what you said. Let's see. This one's in Spanish, so I don't know what he's saying. Omar Cavazos. Saludos con cariño para todos. 3V, una gran empresa. I'm not even going to try, but I'm sure you know. Daryl says, I love the story about their first check. Aunt Judy says, I love you. Aunt Diana says, I love my brothers. Mary Helen says, hello. Clarissa asks a great question, which I think that we did talk about that. Lori, let's see. How did you? Okay, we'll get to that question in a little bit, Clarissa. Lori says, back to your roots. Annette being silly. I'll get to that question in a bit. Araceli says, I love the honesty in this. So many companies run to the easy way out. Aunt Nancy, she says character, capacity, collateral. Those are the three.
Okay.
Clarissa says, I love this. The Villarreals are not quitters. Character goes a long way. Character wins big in business. These guys are so unique, so proud of them all. Great lesson for all businesses. Go above and beyond what's expected and you'll be successful. So those are all the comments that were being said as you were talking about character, which is awesome because I feel like that really struck a chord with everybody. It's so true. People want to take the easy way out. It's about me and myself. And I think it's kind of natural to want to protect yourself. And the fact that you guys,
there's nothing, that's business. Business is rough and tumble. And I don't fault anybody for doing that. It's just not what we could do. We could not bring ourselves to do that.
Yeah.
And if things didn't work out, we would have paid a heavy, heavy price for that. We would have lost everything, and people would be shaking their finger at us saying, I told you so. But it did work out for us. And even if we would have failed miserably, and if we would have, if the worst thing would have happened, I know for a fact that I would walk this earth with my head up high.
Yeah. Good.
That's worth something.
And, as you share this story, it kind of leads into my next question. which is what 3 things, if you could start a business all over again, what 3 things would you do differently? And I feel like paying the dirty dozen wouldn't be one of them, right? You would still do that all over
I'll still
again.
do that. What it,
But
what
outside of that,
differently?
what, well, and let's talk about in reference to starting the business, the
Right.
beginning of it. Like if you could start this all over again, what 3 things would you do differently?
Right. I'm going to say, again, the uniqueness of the kind of customer we had and the growth trajectory that we had we strapped onto a rocket, right? We didn't know it at the time, but that's what we did. And there was no time to think of what you could do differently. You know, there was no time to even do things differently. You just try and keep up. And we used a lot of common sense, and we used every ounce of strength we had and our skills and our work ethic to keep up and to provide the services that they were demanding. That's the thing about us is we didn't have this supply that we had to push out into the market. We never learned that, and I think we're still paying a price for that. But that we were different. We were satisfying a demand, an insatiable demand that sucked everything out of us and pulled us into that demand, right? There wasn't like, we have a product, how are we going to sell it? No, they had a demand, how are we going to fill it?
Wow.
That was our challenge. And so again, it doesn't happen to everybody. This isn't going to be helpful to somebody who has a product and wants to try and sell it, because I have no advice for you. I don't know what that feels like. All I know is we were put into a situation where we got strapped onto a rocket and we had to hold on tight. Now, we also had a strong work ethic and this philosophy of never saying no, which just supercharged our growth, right? Because if you don't know how to say no and you can't say no and you won't say no, like, I think that's really the thing is we won't say no. We won't be the ones that cry uncle here. You ask for it, we're going to find a way to give it to you. Well, that meant investment. I mean, that means 5,000 square feet isn't going to cut it. Let's bust some walls out and make 10,000 feet. And then let's grow to 20,000 feet. And we need this piece of equipment and this other machinery. And this is how we're going to satisfy this demand. So we had to look at the manufacturing side and the construction, the equipment side of things, and the human resource side, of course, to satisfy that demand. And so our minds were constantly busy trying to figure out how to grow the company, not by gaining customers, but by just satisfying that one customer,
Yeah.
and it's going to require this new sander. It's going to require this new planer. It's going to require, 15 more people here and there and here and there. And back in the day, we were pretty good at acquiring these people. I think that's another thing that it may be an intangible. And I don't want to get too philosophical about it, but the fact that we are Hispanic and the fact that in the 70s and 80s and 90s, the workforce was turning Latino and Hispanic, and the schools were sending more and more people to colleges, and vocational programs were ending. The immigrant labor force just started taking over, right? And the fact that we spoke Spanish, we understood that culture, and there was so much abuse of these workers, from owners and from, unscrupulous companies. And we had the secret sauce. I mean, we treated them with dignity. We treated them like our fellow people. They were our people, right? and we could speak the language, but we could also understand the nuances, the culture, what the cultural sensitivities, and what respect meant, and what dignity meant in their language, right? I mean, we were a very attractive place for them to work, and that's not me saying that. That's them saying that, right? This is the best job they've ever had. We hear that over and over and over.
Wow.
And it's because I believe that, and it's not just us. There were a lot of, and there are even more today, a lot of Hispanic owners and stuff like that. And I believe all of them had more success with the Latino workforce than, let's say legacy contractors from before then, right? And we just had we had a connection, a cultural connection that was real, that was based on respect. I would tell my brothers, and we would all feel like, our father was a blue collar worker, right? He went to work in Inland Steel in Indiana with his lunch pail and worked and sweated and loaded things and as a laborer, right? All of his life, right? And when we look out on that shop floor, that's our father. That worker is the people that raised our family, and they have their own families to raise.
Yeah.
If that doesn't deserve respect, then I don't know what does.
Yeah.
And so we gave them that respect.
Yeah.
That they are the head of their household, they are the wage earner, and they deserve the dignity.
Yeah.
And it became that sort of environment, that place to work.
Mm.
And they
My
enjoyed it.
Facebook right now, Uncle Ruben, because I can see the live version on Facebook. There's like hearts flying all over the place right now. Everybody like loving what you're talking about right now. Let me touch base on these comments real quick. We have let's see, where did I leave off? Because there's so many. Grandma says, I'm so proud of my children. And Stephanie says, this is amazing. Annette, wow, that's so powerful. And it is, you don't hear stories like that, That's very honorable, Uncle Ruben. And listening to this, because I've never actually sat down and talked to you about 3V.
Yeah.
This is so encouraging and inspiring to hear that I am an offspring of the people
part
who
of the
built
legacy.
this company. And it's, I wear a lot of honor and pride with that. So, is there one more thing that you would have done differently if you could do it all over again?
I something that I don't think we could have done anything about was just gain wisdom faster. I mean, we growing up the way we did and being exposed to the people we were exposed to, the word mentor was a foreign word. I didn't know what that meant. Nobody knew what that meant. That was a word that you heard the college kids say or whatever, And so, we could have used some mentorship, right? Instead of mentorship, what we had was the school of hard knocks, right? We learned the hard way. We made a lot of mistakes and stuff like that. I wish we could have had all of us could have had mentors that we trusted and that could guide us. We were so ignorant, uneducated. It doesn't mean we weren't successful. We were successful, right? But we made a lot of mistakes. I like to say that we had a very murky windshield,
Right.
and we had a very clear rear view mirror.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah, and what could you have done different if you didn't know you needed to do it different? Well, then does that count? And then what you do in lieu of that is you read books,
Yeah.
and so my mentors are literary figures, historical figures, figures from the movies, people that I'm like, wow, that's profound, and I'll make that part of my principle, part of my fundamental principles and how I act and what I stand for and stuff like that. But it's slow to come. I look at our children. I look at you. I look at other people around us at your age and even older than you, but that had a different background than us. And I'm so impressed. And I'm like, God, I wish I was that smart when I was that age. Oh my God, I would have given anything to your exposure to so many aspects of life and are is so much more than what we were exposed to, right? It's so much more varied, so much more worldly, and in that is some underlying wisdom that you could bring to bear on your careers earlier,
Yeah.
and hopefully you don't have a murky windshield. Hopefully,
I hired business coaches.
what the hell is a business coach? I mean,
What you would call
a
a
business
mentor.
coach. What do we need a business coach for? Shit. Well, I got my skill saw, I got my tape, and there's the work over there. That's all I need. I don't need anybody to coach me to do that, right? We were so ignorant about business. We didn't actually learn about business until the Randall's thing ended.
Right.
Then we had to learn about business. By then, you're talking about, a 20-year-old company. You would think middle-aged company, right? Very mature, been there, done that, knows all of these things. Total novices about cost controls and all of the financials and all of the aspects, sales and marketing and all of that you're supposed to, by 20 years, if you didn't know that, you wouldn't have been around. So you must know that. You just, of course, you know that. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
old hat for you. No, not for us. For us, we had to learn that on the fly 20 years later.
Yeah.
Because we
Well,
never.
Uncle Ruben, I'm trying to be mindful of time. So you would have hired a mentor or some type of business coach.
Absolutely.
Got it. That's a very common theme in these interviews. So I have like 2 minutes to wrap this interview up, but I have a lot of questions here. So I'm going to go through and pick some out. So we've got one. Now remember, you got 30 seconds to answer. How did you navigate prioritizing your family and your business? Were there ever times you had to sacrifice one for the other?
I would always sacrifice the family for the business. So go on. Okay. My wife is going crazy. I don't know. It's like everyone else. It's a challenge. It's you come home and you love your family, and your family loves you, and you go to work and they respect your work, and they know that that's what feeds the family, and it's a symbiotic relationship. I don't. You would have to ask my family, but I don't think we've ever struggled in that department. Well, have I not gone to some games or whatever? Yeah, but has that caused a trauma? I don't believe so. I believe we've all taken it in stride. We have some hits, we have some hurts, but nothing. It's pretty balanced.
Mm-hmm. Matthew says, following the strap to the rocket metaphor, what happened when you broke through Earth's gravity? What were the first things you needed to take care of when the dust settled?
Oxygen, because there's no oxygen up there, Matthew.
Which is probably metaphorically true.
I don't understand the question. Does he mean after post 20 years,
Like,
pre 20 years?
well, because you said that once you guys started this business, you guys took off.
We took off, yeah.
And so he's saying like, okay, so then you took off and you just like exploded out of
Right.
the earth. So then what? How were you able to manage?
Oh,
that?
well, we've already gone through that. We just tons and tons of common sense, putting one foot in front of the other, and again with this mentality of you're not going to say no, then that tells you what to do next. If
Mhm.
you need to expand, expand. If you need 5 more people, go hire 5 more people. If you need a machine, go buy the machine. You know, there. That's what you do. You
You just
react.
keep going.
You just keep going. You
Yeah.
just keep going.
Aaron is taking note that mom refilled your scotch.
Actually, it would be, this is Christina refilled my scotch. Look how.
Oh, no. Christina later said, no, actually that was me. So Christina, you get the credit here. My dad said, Ruben is a cool
He
brother.
does not know how to fill scotches. Look how much is in there.
My dad says, Ruben is a cool brother. He's way better at interviews than me.
That's why I'm doing this.
Omar, he's saying something in Spanish. I'm so sorry. This is like awful that I'm admitting to all of you guys that I don't know Spanish.
I'm so sorry for not getting through all of your questions. I'm so long-winded. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Uncle Dave asks, what would you say that John Adams was a mentor?
Yes, in a way. He was not a business mentor.
Okay.
He was a life mentor. He was a key part of our lives. But I think he had a boundary there that he would not interfere, and he would not, and keep in mind that he could not be. There would be too much of a conflict. He was a customer after all. Now he would give us some advice, and he would wag his finger and say, "Don't." Here's what he would say. He would say, "Don't take on any more business if it means, it's gonna sacrifice your work for Randall's." We're like, "Yes, sir." I mean, he was very selfish in that you're mine, you're mine, you're no one else's. I don't want to hear that you're a day late here because you had something to do for Safeway. Hell no. So there was an inherent conflict in that would not allow him to be the kind of mentor that he probably could have been, you know.
Yeah.
But he's one of my best. I love John Adams, one of my best friends. We talk all the time, and I love that man, and he loves us. He
Yeah.
loves all of us and thinks very highly of us. We keep thanking him for all the opportunity, and his response is always the same. He goes, you don't understand. You made me look good."
Wow.
So that's always, in other words, he gives it right back to us.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's a good note to end it with. You always made him look good, but you made everybody that you worked with, and based on everything
Well,
that
that's our
you shared
mission.
tonight,
That's absolutely right. That's
you
our
made everybody
mission.
look good.
You make one phone call. Now you've got a lot of other things on your mind. Go do those things. But now that you've called 3V, that part of your world, forget about it. It's taken care of.
Yeah.
Don't worry about that. Go do other things. And if you need help on those things, call us. We'll help you there too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Annette says, Uncle Ruben, you make me look good. And then you know what? You make me look good as well. So, Uncle Ruben, thank you so much for spending this last hour with me. I really appreciate it. Aunt Lori, and I can't remember the friend that's there. Thank you guys so much for watching. Christina, thank you guys for spending your evening with me. For those that are watching, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope that you learned so much about this company and what they represent. And I hope that something struck a chord with you and resonated with you. If you're a small business owner, I hope that you take this to heart and really think about what this means to you and your business, because I think that there's a lot of golden nuggets in this interview. All the family members do what?
Do you really? I mean, we don't barely talk about business. A lot of it was personal, but
it's about your journey.
Yeah.
And you shared a lot of insight. You know, owning a business as a child from a family member that owned businesses, it's not an easy life.
No, it's not.
It's hard. It's hard, not just for you guys, but for the kids as
Don't take it
well.
on lightly, guys.
Yes,
If you're out there, don't do it.
and with that said, all the family members are watching, right? We have all the aunts and uncle, all your brothers and sisters, grandma, all the cousins, everybody's watching. Lots of pride in this interview. So thank you so much. Next week on Tuesday, starting in the month of June, golly, we're already in June, is going to be our final interview of this series. It'll also be an hour-long interview, so make sure you grab yourself a cocktail, some popcorn, and tune in because we are going to be interviewing my former boss, Mr. Daryl Dyke of Noble Mortgage, who has completely changed my life by taking a chance on me. And I'm really excited to hear his story because, you know, he's been in business for 18 years now, and he has such an honorable view and perspective to business. And so I'm really excited to hear his story as well. We're going to get to talk about marketing, and we're going to end the series with that finale, if you will. So Uncle Ruben, thank you again so much. I really appreciate it. I love you dearly. Aunt Lori, I love you because we all know credit belongs to Aunt Lori, guys.
That's right. Eric, I'm so proud of you. Good luck in your endeavor. You're doing a fantastic job. This is a good series that you're putting on. I'm sure a lot of people appreciate it, and it just shows your talent, and you chip off the old block. You just continue the legacy.
Thank you. All right. Well, if you found this video inspiring or helpful, please give it a heart. Share it on your Facebook timeline because we do want as many people to hear this wonderful and inspiring story as possible. So thank you guys again, and y'all have a wonderful night.